today we're going to be installing the Espar D2L S2 heater that we got off of heatso.com. We'll put a link for them down below. They have great customer service. We really like them. They were actually a few days late in shipping the item, and they sent us a free carbon monoxide detector, so I can't say enough good things about them. I also got a comment in another video that they wanted to see the final product in the beginning, so here it is. Pumping out heat. And we're going to show you how we installed ours. Please keep in mind we are not professionals. We watched quite a few YouTube videos and read some blogs. It's honestly not that bad. It's just a lot of steps. We'll also put links to all of the parts that we got that weren't included in the kit down below. So let's get started. Alright, so this is the kit that we bought. We got it on heatso.com. We'll put a link down in the description below. First and foremost, this is the Espar S2 D2L heater. Which is not to be confused with the intergalactic R2D2 heater. Star Wars jokes. Okay. And these are all the components. I'm going to kind of do just a really brief overview. There will be a quiz later, so pay attention. This comes out of the heater. We're putting ours under the passenger seat like most people. This will vent the heater to the outside of the seat box. The heater sits on this metal plate. I know that some of the kits actually don't come with this. I've seen some people use them and some people not. This is the intake hose that goes underneath right here. It'll hook, and we'll show you all of this when we're hooking it up in the van. And then this is the exhaust hose, which connects to the muffler. And this is the other end of the muffler. This is the wiring harness. This connects to the heater, and it connects to the thermostat, the Easy Start Pro thermostat, which also came with the kit. This is the fuel pump. Be very careful with this. I would recommend not taking these caps off until you're ready to install it because you don't want dirt to get in there. This is the fuel line, and then these are all of the nuts and bolts and zip ties and fuses and clamps and things that you'll need. Now, we have seen a lot of people buy extra parts. First, they've bought this adapter that connects the fuel line because one side, the fuel line is smaller than the other side you need to connect it to. But we just saw that I think they actually started providing an adapter, so we may not actually need this. The spray paint is to spray the metal on the van when we cut holes in it because we don't want it to rust. And then this is like a wire loom, a heat protectant that we're going to wrap around the fuel line since it has to go over the exhaust. And then this is also optional. I've seen some people use this and some people not. It's a heat resistant like gasket maker, kind of like a silicone that some people put on the bottom of the heater right here. But there is a rubber gasket that comes on here already, so we may not even need that. Are you ready? Yep. Oh, one more thing. It does come with these instructions. I've heard they're terrible. I haven't looked at them myself. But that's what YouTube's for. So let's start. Okay. And we'll also need these fuel line connectors. These do not come with the kit, but you need to get them. You can get them at O'Reilly's where we did, or you can get them on Amazon. I'll put the link in the description box below. Okay, I'm out here trying to take off these bolts so that we can take off the seat. And if you don't know what those are, they are called Torx bit. So Torx. And I found these ones at Harbor Freight. We'll probably link some in this video because it might be a little easier to plan ahead. Harbor Freight only had one left, so but I'm sure any other hardware store would have them. And the size for this is an E.14. Looks like we've made a mess in here. Yep. While working on it, so I'm going to vacuum it out. Woody got the seat off, and this is what the inside of the seat box looks like. In a 2019 Sprinter van, that's what year ours is, but from the videos that we've seen, it looks pretty similar. Yep, again, we didn't unhook the power because we've heard that that can throw a code that costs money to get reset at the dealership.
We've heard it about the driver's seat. We're not sure about the passenger seat, but honestly, just tilting it back like that, it's not in our way, so I'm not worried about it.
Yeah, we don't want to take our chances. We've heard that unplugging the seats can throw a code that costs $150 that only the Mercedes dealership can fix. So Woody used this metal plate as a stencil to draw his circles with a Sharpie. And this is where we're going to use the hole saw, and we're going to use some tape to make like a little fence around it that we've seen in other videos so the metal shavings don't go everywhere. First hole. And we're using an 1 1/8" hole saw on these, which is just slightly bigger. Alright, we got the holes drilled, and look how many metal shavings the tape caught. Really great idea. Alright, we're going to dry fit it, and it fits. Perfect.
Nice.
This is a very important step. Make sure you spray where you cut so there's no raw metal, and you don't want rust, because that's what will happen. Woody already sprayed up from underneath, and he had the smart idea to put wood over the holes, and then he went and sprayed up. And now I'm just gonna spray down. Make sure you get all the sides right around here, and you can use like a foam brush too. We've done that before. And then just make sure you have something underneath.
What kind are you using now?
This is Ultra Cover paint and primer. I find that it's Rust-Oleum. I find that this just dries faster, and it's just more convenient.
And we don't care what it looks like because it's going to be under the seats.
Right,
if it was something visible, we'd probably be a little more careful.
That's going to be covered anyway, so.
Yep.
Okay, so while that paint is drying, that's a pretty good color. You can barely see it. We took the driver's seat off, and now we need to just take this plastic casing off. There's a bolt there, and then there's a bolt way down there that we need to take off, because underneath this there's a rubber boot that all of these wires are going through to go underneath the van, and we need to access that. Okay, next we are going to bolt the actual heater unit down, and you want to grab this bag from your kit and get 4 of these little bolts out of there. What I meant to say is you want to grab 4 of those nuts and then 4 of the washers. Okay, next we're going to put this gasket maker, heat resistant, it's like a silicone, around these holes. Now we're going to put the plate on that was provided with the kit. And then with the heater, we actually wrapped the fuel line right here in electric tape so that gasket sealer doesn't get on it or in it. Okay, so we put the heater in, and now we need to go underneath the van and bolt it on. Okay, now you're going to want to take those washers and nuts that I just showed you and put them on underneath the van and bolt them down with a socket wrench. Alright, give it a little wiggle test, and it's in there nice, and it's really sturdy, nice and tight. So the next step is the fuel pump. Okay, so we've untangled the wiring harness, and it looks confusing because it branches off into 4 different parts. This one right here is the one we're going to work with first. This is for power to the fuel pump, and you need to be very, very careful with these tips because they're hard to replace. And then this next one that Woody's holding.
This goes into the actual unit on the heater, so that connects there.
Yep. And then follow this over here. And this one looks confusing because there are so many wires, but we're only using this the one that's already connected, and this supplies power to the thermostat that was also provided in the kit. So all we need is this one. And then this fourth one.
So these are the wires that power comes in. This is the ground, and these are the two positives that come in. Not sure what this is, but I've not seen anybody use it, so we're gonna leave it, and we'll talk about how to hook all of this up a little bit later in the video. Oh, geese, come on. Get it? Geese, come on. No?
See, they know it's cold too.
Yeah, but they're going north.
They're confused.
Y'all are lost.
This is the wire for the fuel pump, and we need to fish it from here because it's going to come out of the heater under the floor. And if we were to pull this up, there'd be a little white compartment that has a bunch of wires feeding through it, and we're trying to avoid having to pull this up, and it needs to come out this way. And like I said earlier, we want to protect it, so we put tape around it, sticky side out, and then wrap more tape around it to cover the stickiness, and then we put it in this rubber.
So this is casing that came around our 120 electrical wiring. Obviously had to pull some of it off, so it's really like heat resistant, and this is also what we're going to end up using to protect the fuel line as well.
So we just figured because it's a little bit stiffer, it'd be easier to try and fish it through. So let's see how this works. That was actually a lot easier than I thought. See that blue piece? That's our tape. We just need to pull it through. Success! Got it. I thought that was actually going to take us a lot longer than it did. And then we just pulled the rubber casing off after we were able to fish it through. And now this needs to go through that rubber boot right there. Right there. And we'll show you that underneath the van. And then this is going to connect to the fuel pump.
So we're not using the connector that we had bought because this is the connector we bought. Adapter, thinking we'd have to go from the fuel tap to this fuel line. The kit that we bought came with one, so we're going to use that instead. And it's got, you can see the small end and then the big end. So what I'm doing now is I'm pushing this in and then making a mark to show how far in I want it to go, because it's kind of hard to tell when it moves in and out. I need to make sure I have a clamp on there. So close. Okay, now taking my 9/30 seconds, because I don't have the metric version of this, ratchet and tighten this down.
The kit also comes with this rubber ring, and this is how you're going to mount the fuel pump. And like we showed you earlier, there is a little thing that says fuel and an arrow. We drew it on with a Sharpie just to make sure. This is going to go up at between 15 and 35 degrees, so that side will go up. All right, we got it. It was actually kind of tough to get this rubber thing on, but I assume that's for good reason, so it doesn't fall out when you're driving.
So ours came with this extra fuel filter that we have not seen anybody else use. We were trying to figure out how to install it because we don't have enough of these rubber pieces to connect it all. As we looked that up, there's actually a fuel filter inside down here. You can change that out if necessary, so we're going to opt not to use this. Again, nobody else has been using an extra one, so yeah, we'll go install this now.
All right, so we have the pump right here, and just remember to make sure that it's between a 15 and 35 degree angle. This is a really awkward spot to record, so we'll try to get it as best we can. Good job, babe.
All right, so this is the adapter we previously showed you. I cut the length of fuel tubing that we wanted, put on another connector, this black rubber piece that it comes with, and then this black piece will go into the fuel pump. and then we'll put another clamp there. And then we'll be making this longer one where we'll have another small connector on it. The fuel pump fuel coming out of the fuel pump will go in here, and then that'll run across to the other side.
And then the other side of this long piece will connect into the heater. So I'm assuming we won't need all of this. They do provide a lot extra, but just in case, depending on where you're installing it. Okay, so we have some of this rubber wire loom, and this is, a lot of people use plastic. We had this left over from our electrical and thought this would be better. It's highly rated, and this is the part that's going to go over the exhaust and over the heat plate. So we just want to make sure that the fuel line is protected, because that would be a nightmare if this melted and then diesel fuel would be leaking everywhere. Okay, so the long part attaches to the fuel pump.
Okay, and then we'll tighten that there.
Then you just need to feed the length. We're going over the drivetrain. Oh, stuff's falling in my eyes. And then over the heat plate for the exhaust. And this is kind of a tight spot over here. And it comes out and then up into the heater. But this wire loom is what is going to be over the heat plate, so it doesn't get too hot. Okay, so we took the electrical tape off that we showed you earlier off of the fuel pump, and now Woody's going to put yet another rubber connector
All the way up. And yet another clampable.
We connected the fuel line into the heater. A tip, do not connect the intake and the exhaust before you do the fuel line, because with those in the way, it would be very, very difficult to tighten down the screw on this clamp. So I would highly recommend doing the fuel line first.
All right, this is the cap for the fuel tap. It's got a little button on this side that you push and it pops off, and then you put this
Connector
that we bought on, and it should click into place, and we'll hope it's the right connector, and then we'll hook it to the fuel pump here, and I'll go ahead and do that now.
So you just squeeze the sides, pull the cap off, and if you heard that click, it just clicks on.
That's good.
And then the other end.
Okay, we get it. You want to protect the fuel pump, I agree. Some days.
Slides right onto the fuel pump.
I wish.
And then you'll tighten the clamp around that.
There we go. Alright, now we're going to do the electrical for the fuel pump, and I need to cut this boot open. There's just a little zip tie on there, so we're just going to cut that off, and then we'll re-zip tie it once we get the cables out of there. You see, this just opens up now into the van, and then we'll feed those wires through, and then they'll connect into that thing right there.
So now we're gonna open this boot. Ugh, it's messy. And there it is. This is the electrical for the fuel pump. Now you're just going to push the wires into the little connector that came with the kit, and you should hear a little click from each wire. Okay, and then you just push it into the fuel pump.
And it clicked.
There's a little clip. And now the electrical is connected to the fuel pump, and we're done with the fuel pump. In fact, we're done with the fuel line altogether. Okay, so next we're going to attach the hose that goes from the heater and vents out of the van, and then this is the vent, that's the hose. You need a 2 3/4 inch hole saw, and that should fit this hole perfectly. So Woody's going to trace the circle. And that's where we're going to drill the hole. To prepare the area, we just put a little piece of wood down there. We put a bunch of bubble wrap all over the heater and the electrical. We put some tape sticky side up down here, and a little tape fence here, and a little tape fence here. It is a little excessive, but we've had a bad experience with metal shavings flying in our face before. It's not attached.
Oh, man.
So now I think we're ready to drill the hole. Nice. And look at all the metal shavings it caught. And some on the inside too. Okay, we're gonna dry fit this. And it fits. Now we need to paint these edges to prevent rust. Okay, the paint is dry, so we're going to attach this little vent cover. And Woody's going to pre-drill the holes. There's 3 screw holes. Nice. And then this is the actual vent, and it just snaps on. Like that. And then you can angle it to wherever you want for when the heat's coming out.
All right, now we're hooking up the ducting that goes from the heater to the vent into the van. We did, well, not we, I was trying to bend this because we didn't get a lot of length like other videos that we've seen, and it kind of made a crease, so we wrapped it with this foil tape so that no hot air comes out of it. And now we've hooked it to the heater
with this clamp that comes with it.
Okay, that's nice and snug. And then the other end just kind of pops onto this piece like that.
And this has like these little threads that kind of interlock with the grooves on the hose. I'm surprised there's not another clamp for it, but I think it'll be okay. So then the heater will come up through the tube and out the vent. Alright, next we're putting the intake on, which is this plastic hose that comes with the kit, and we're facing it forward, and we're trying to fish it over this plastic box right here because the exhaust is going to go backwards, and we figured that we don't really want the air coming in to be next to the air coming out, because we don't want the air coming in to be the exhaust. This doesn't sound like a good idea.
Less than ideal.
And then you just put a clamp on the end of the hose, like you do with everything else, and tighten it. And then it's hanging down on the other side. We'll probably cut that because we don't need it to be that long. So we'll probably cut it around right there. Okay, and it'll look like that. So you got the fuel line, the intake, and then the exhaust will come out right there. Okay, now we're going to cut the intake. And then put this little critter cap on it that's provided with the kit so things don't crawl up in there. It's just a little plastic cap. Like that. Okay, next we're going to put this muffler slash exhaust system together. And really it's just this big long hose and then the shorter one. And then it comes with these clamps, and then we'll install that underneath the van. Woody's using a Torque 30 bit to tighten those clamps. Nice and secure, and then do the other side. The long piece comes out of the heater into the muffler, and then you add the short piece on the other side of the muffler, and then there's a little critter cap on that one too. Just slide the hose right on there, and then once again you tighten the clamp. Alright, so you want to take this bracket and it attaches to the muffler. We're going to screw this into the side of the van right there. Alright, so we used one of these to secure the end of the exhaust down at the end, and now we're going to use the second one to secure it up right here.
Just trying to find the right spot so that we don't have any dips or like sags in the exhaust for condensation purposes.
Okay, we're done with the exhaust. Just going to give you a little overview. It comes out of the heater right here, and it goes all the way along. We secured it there, and then it hooks into the muffler right there, and then it pokes out of the van because you don't really want the exhaust fumes pulling up underneath the van. Luckily, they provided enough in the kit to go past the sliding door. I've seen some videos where the exhaust actually is underneath the door and ours isn't, so I'm really happy about that. And it comes out right there. You can't really see it unless you're looking for it. Alright, now we're moving on to electrical. We already showed you how to do the fuel pump, the electrical for the fuel pump. Remember, we ran it underneath the floor. There's like a plastic case in there with a bunch of wires, and then down through that boot. Now what we're going to do is this one that Woody has right here.
This is the wiring harness that'll hook right into the heater, one of these ways. So then there's these two other strands that branch off from it. One is to power the thermostat, the thermostat, and the other is to run and connect to our house batteries.
And we're going to run both of them through this hole right here, and then it'll come out. We're going to lift up this rubber mat, and we're going to run it along the outside of this, and Woody's going to undo this little plastic frame, and then we're going to run it along here, and then up through there, and then this is the wire to connect to our house batteries. Some people connect the heater to the actual car battery, which you would do in here. We're not going to do that. We're going to connect it to the house battery, and then also the other wire for the thermostat is going to run up along here. And I think we're going to put our thermostat either somewhere up there or on our kitchen unit that's not built yet.
That's a really long screw for how little it went in.
And some people don't run it this way. Actually, I don't think I've seen anyone run it like this. We could have just drilled another hole through here and put a grommet, but we decided to not cut any more holes in the metal. And some people, I think, probably come out under here, or even under here. There's a hole that's big enough. We put our floor in already, so we can't go that way, and we really don't want the wire to be exposed. So I think this is the best option for us, but obviously do what suits your needs.
That's the cool. You can kind of see
Just like that.
wires are coming around, and then we'll run it along there.
Alright, it was kind of a pain in the butt, but we ran it up this B pillar. We actually just pulled this off. They're little clips, you can clip back on. And then we're running the thermostat cable across here, and our kit came with extra because this isn't quite long enough to reach. Right here we'll have upper head cabinets, and we're going to put the thermostat either on the side, or we'll run it down here and put it on the side of our kitchen. My vote is here.
Okay, so now I am setting the power wires that take power from the battery into the heater. You have to add these little tiny connectors onto them. I have heard that they're a pain. I have not tried one yet. You also need to add these little plugs, not little plugs, but they're just little like labels, I guess, so that you know which one is which when it plugs and how it fits into the fuse box. So we did see on a video they recommend putting these on before you strip the wire. I had forgotten that and stripped the wire, and it is absolutely necessary to put them on first. So
because it's hard to get the little copper strands through the holes individually, so just make sure you put those little rubber, I guess they're like little gaskets, onto the wire before you strip it.
Yep, so now I'm going to strip it and put the connectors on, and then I'll show you when it's done. Alright, so then you have to add these connectors. They're not super great, but basically you get them in there, and then you have to clamp these two sides down. And I don't really have a tool for that. I don't even know if they make a tool for that.
You clamp the bottom part around.
And then you clamp like this. You can see they'll clamp that little rubber piece in there.
It'll look like that.
Then this plugs into the fuse box and just clamps onto the little prong of the fuse. And then these just make sure it seats in there and stays. So I have hooked the lines coming from the heater into the fuse box. It doesn't matter which spot you put them in. You just have to make sure that the two wires are side by side. So now I'm putting in the ones that will go out to the battery, and you'll hear them click. And then maybe it doesn't want to go in that way. Okay, there we go. So you can see that they're side by side, and that's because the fuse goes in like that, and you want to make sure that you're bridging the same wires with the fuse. So it's a little easier to see like in person, but these two, in fact, put the fuse in.
And what he was saying, he put the two yellow ones, or the thicker cables, next to each other, and then the two blue ones, the thinner cables, next to each other.
And that's because this thicker fuse, the higher amperage fuse, goes in like that and basically connects those two same colored ones together. So did not stay in very well.
And the fuse, those are the little clamps, and the fuse just goes in between those.
Yep. Okay, so I have the 5 amp fuse connected to the two thinner cables, the 20 amp fuse connected to the two thicker cables, and then the cables coming off into the battery are all spliced together. That's the wrong word, but they're connected together in one. I've got these quick connect heat sink on there. So we'll just put the lid on the fuse box.
And this little lid and the fuses came with the kit.
So now I'm connecting the ground wire to my black cable, which runs to the back of the van and grounds out with the rest of my electrical. And then I'm connecting the two power cables to the red wire, which goes back to the back of the van as well. Make sure I didn't.
And we ran this wire way beforehand, knowing that we would be getting this heater.
And then I'm going to shrink those down, those connections down, so that they're nice and stable. And then I'll probably even double up with some electrical tape just for the sake of it.
Alright, the very last step in this many-step process is to install the Easy Start Pro, and we're really just going to plug it in right here. This is the extension. If you guys don't use this, you'll be using this one that has a bunch of multicolored cables on it. Just use what is already hooked up. We have it covered in electric tape.
It looks just like this though.
But yeah, it looks just like this. You don't need to worry about all the other cables. The last and final step is to plug the power into the actual heater. We did it! Woohoo! Honestly, we were a little bit nervous because it wasn't working at first, and all the videos we watched said that you need to prime the fuel line by turning it off and on about 5 or so times, and we did that like 10 times and it still wasn't working. So then we went underneath the van to try to troubleshoot and see if we did something wrong. And then we were staring at the fuel pump and it started clicking, which means it was working. And then we came inside the van and it was working. So we didn't have to change anything. Honestly, I think we just needed to threaten the fuel pump a little bit by staring at it. But I wanted to give you a high-level overview of the whole system in case the video was just a little bit hard to follow. All right, so first we have the heater. And it's pumping air, combusting it in here. And the air is coming out through this tube and out the vent, and the hot air feels so nice, especially since it's like 30-something degrees out here. And then this is the big cable that is the power that is ran underneath here, all around the box, up the bead pillar, and then it's connected to the fuse box and our house batteries, because this cable is ran all the way to the back. And then the same goes with the thermostat cable. Runs around, up the bead pillar. It's tucked up here. You can kind of see it hanging down right here. And then here. And it's connected to the thermostat. Next we have the electrical wire that runs underneath here, under the floor, into the driver's side, through that boot, through this boot, and then it runs along here and it's connected into the fuel pump. Next we have this connector that we did not come with the kit, we did have to buy it, and it just connects into this pre-existing fuel tap that connects into our diesel tank, which is this big boy right here. And then we have the adapter that came with it. We'll put a link down to a plastic one in case your kit doesn't come with it. And then the fuel line, it's pulling fuel out of the tank into the pump. And then out of the pump, again, make sure this is between 15 and 35 degrees. Out of the pump, all the way across, over the exhaust and the heat plate. And then up here into the actual heater. Okay, and then we have that black hose right there is the intake. That's where the air is coming in, right there. And then we have the exhaust that runs all the way along, and it's very hot when the heater's running. So be careful with that. And then there's the muffler, and it's pointed outside of the van, so the exhaust doesn't really pull up underneath here. And there's the exhaust from the outside of the van. And the way I could tell it was working initially is I could start to smell the fumes, which obviously you don't breathe that in because it's not good for you. But yeah, I think we're done. Actually, I know we're done. It's working. And now that winter is upon us, it's going to be really nice to have a heater inside the van while we're working in here and finishing the build. So I think we just need to put the seats back on and we're good. Well, if you guys found this video helpful, please let us know by commenting down below or message us on Instagram at Encompass.Adventure. Or just say hi, like the video, and please don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye!
I got myself stuck.
Your shoulder's hitting the van.
I can't. Ow. Did I make the bloopers again?
The blooper reel is all you.
Oh, I made the bleepers. Having a battery-powered ratchet would be really nice right now. Christmas is coming up.